So what we want to show you today is an idea, and then we have a discussion about this idea. We haven't ironed everything out yet. So we start with a little explanation what the idea is about. That's what I'm doing, and then Elaine will show you how this could actually work. Yeah. Okay, so first from me, I'm also in Hamburg. Some of you know me. I've been working at the intersection of digital innovation on one hand side and marketing, product innovation, business model design, service, and stuff like this. On the other hand, work a lot for companies like Deutsche Telekom or Volkswagen, but also for a lot of consultancies like Diconium, where Martin is from. And my imaginary job title is practical visionary. Yeah, the basic idea of the stuff that I'm doing is I'm trying to find stuff that will become interesting in the near future. And I educate and help companies work with this, but always with a focus on a real practical angle. Yeah, there are three areas that I'm working or focusing on right now. One is digital strategy. Yeah, that's more something like the evergreen. Then the metaverse, what Janet was just mentioning, but also disruptive China. Yeah, and the idea behind the China focus is that I've been to China for the first time now nearly 4 years ago. And I used to go to find new digital trends to the US. And I realized that there were less and less interesting things happening there. And then I went to China for the first time, and I realized that a lot of these interesting trends that I was looking for in the US are actually happening in China. And nobody here in the West actually knows about this. Yeah, a lot of companies that work only here in the West have no idea what's happening in China. And then when I started with a colleague in Beijing, a little online think tank that's called China Briefs, that wants to educate Western companies to look to China the way how we used to look to the US. Yeah, and that's basically the background, and that's also the reason why we are here today. Yeah, because we are still always looking to the Silicon Valley. Most of the stuff that's seeing there hasn't been changed much over the last 10 years or so. But at the same time, the world around us has changed a lot. Yeah, and it is actually changing right now. So we probably also have to change with the products that I'm working on, the ideas, the approaches, the strategies. Yeah, and if we only look to the US or to within our Western bubble, we probably find the right solutions to this. And that's one of the ideas how to do this, to find new ideas, is to bring diversity into teams. Yeah, but if diversity only comes from the same bubble, from our Western socialized way of thinking, then we probably won't come to these new ideas that we actually use for the need for this changing world. And that's the reason why I think it makes sense to go to a place where everything is totally different. And that's actually what we are talking about now is digital China. Yeah, and how different is China? I think here in this group, most of the people here know what's happening in China and how quickly it changed over the last 20, 30 years. Yeah, that's a short video clip that I like to show to groups who have no idea about what's happening there. Yeah, like the cities that we're seeing here. Changed over the last 20, 30 years in a way that is totally unfamiliar to anyone who is living in Hamburg, Berlin, or even New York or Austin, Texas. Yeah, because we probably also have built a few new houses, but we didn't rebuild the whole cities. Yeah, and what we're also seeing here is the China speed. That's different. Another thing that's different is what we are seeing here. Not sure if you guys know what we are seeing here, but that's the quickest growing scene of online influencers in China. Yeah, senior people, and that's always for me a very interesting or good example for Chinese curiosity. Yeah, that Chinese consumers are always eager to find new things, to try new things out. That's totally different from consumers here, especially in Germany. And the last thing that's different in China is that if you stand in a corner in Shanghai or Beijing, you actually see the future. Yeah, there are lots of interesting things that are happening there that you won't see, for example, if you go to a city like New York. Yeah, and that's Chinese ingenuity. And if you compare this to the digital scene here in Germany or in the West in general, like taking, for example, e-commerce, here everything became a little bit stagnant. Yeah, e-commerce actually works today the same way it worked 20 years ago. Yeah, not much has changed, and all the competitors are more or less doing the same. And the reason for this is, if we see something new, we learn how this works, and at a certain point we are finished. Yeah, we know how this works, the consumers are happy with it, and then nothing is actually changing a lot. Yeah, and that's totally different in China, as you probably all know, because there you have constant innovation, because always you have to beat the competition and you have to rethink everything permanently. You can't become stagnant. And that's also what's happened with e-commerce. Yeah, here in the West, we still have the same goal as we had 20 years ago when the first e-commerce shops went online. We want to make shopping easy. Yeah, we want to fulfill a specific need as efficiently as possible. And that also probably started the same way in China, but now in China it's totally different, because now everybody already fulfills the specific needs as efficiently as possible. Now everybody wants to make shopping exciting, yeah, provide a real experience, and that's something that's dearly missing in the West. Yeah, our online shopping systems are anything but exciting. Yeah, that's a totally normal shopping experience in Amazon. That has nothing to do with what's seeing in Chinese shopping systems. I did a similar speech in Paris a couple of months ago, and there was the head of global e-commerce for L'Oreal. And he said a very interesting thing. He said for him, Amazon destroys brand value and Alibaba creates it. Yeah, because the way how a brand can use an e-commerce system like Alibaba is totally different than what Amazon provides. Yeah, the way how you provide an experience is even going to the way how you send a product over to your customer. Yeah, if you have, like, that's not Alibaba, it's JD, but if you buy a luxury product there, it doesn't get delivered by some guy who is throwing it in your door, but it's delivered by somebody like this. Yeah, and another interesting trend in China is, you're probably also much familiar with it, is live shopping. Yeah, a lot of things are happening around live shopping. A lot of money is earned. Everybody is doing this. Yeah, it's a really huge trend, and it ended up in something that's called shoppertainment. Yeah, where you combine shopping and entertainment and to create again an experience, something that is not happening in Western e-commerce shops. Another interesting area is where you merge online and offline retail. Yeah, that's what's in China called OMO, like rethinking supermarkets, how supermarkets work. It's the way how this actually physical retail store is working. That's totally new, but it's also the fact that you can order everything online and it gets delivered to you in under 20 minutes. From these physical retail stores. Yeah, you have both of those things combined. I've been talking about this for like 3 years, and 3 years ago was something that everybody was excited about here in the West. Nowadays, we have instant commerce here too. Yeah, we have a service in Germany that's called Gorillas or Flink. In the US, you have Instacart. The interesting thing here is those are separated from the physical retail stores. Yeah, you have Amazon Go, who's focusing on innovation in physical retail stores, and you have services like Instacart or Gorillas, who are revolutionizing the online buying experience. But in China, you have both at the same time. Yeah, Hema is doing both channels and revolutionizing both channels at the same time, and that's also an indication for how different people in China think. We often in the West think in silos. They often think in systems. Yeah, they are building ecosystems. And that's also something that's different in China. You have a totally different digital ecosystem. These are the top 50 websites in China, no, worldwide. And the interesting thing is most people who are using the internet are Chinese. Yeah, that's the largest group. But you don't see them if you look at websites, because Chinese people don't use websites. They use a mobile-only system, usually based on super apps that combine all the services that are, like, for example, WeChat, yeah, they that aggregate services that are totally separate. Here in the West, again, we are using our silos, they are using their system. You have mobile payment everywhere. Yeah, that's something that's still not happening here. And if you combine these super apps with this mobile payment and the fact that everybody is using it, what you end up with the system is like WeChat. That means frictionless onboarding for a new e-commerce shop. Here in the West, if you want to use a new e-commerce shop, the first thing is you have to register an account, you have to type in your email address, then you have to find a way to pay for stuff that you buy. Yeah, all this takes forever, and there are a lot of things that can go wrong. In China, it's extremely quick and easy to use a new service because WeChat is handling everything in the backend. Yeah, that's a very valuable proposition that actually Facebook for years is trying to also provide to us. Yeah, they buy services like WhatsApp with the idea of turning a service like WhatsApp into a WeChat, but they fail to do this so far. And why do they do this? My idea or my theory is because Facebook or Meta is totally focusing on advertising revenue. Yeah, service like WeChat or Tencent, they are focusing on the user. Yeah, advertising is just a little part of the business, and that's also rooted again in thinking, because Western businesses usually try to focus. Yeah, they try to find one thing, like for example ad revenue, and they focus totally on this, scale this, and that generates growth. While services like Tencent build complex ecosystems, and then they don't have this 99% ad revenue business model, but they have very complex ecosystems with totally different revenue streams. And they suddenly also focus on different things than just advertising revenue and advertisers. Yeah, and that's how a service like WeChat is providing such a great service to its users, while Facebook, their customers are the ad buyers. So there are three areas where China is different. Consumer thinking, the digital ecosystem, and the way how business models works. And the question is, can we use this? Yeah, can we use this different thinking when we work on concepts here in the West? Yeah, that's basically the idea that we are talking about here. By asking, for example, and Elaine will show you how this actually works, by asking Chinese consumers about business concept, products, and stuff that is happening here to get their feedback and they get new ideas. Of course, when you talk about this, then very quickly we say, yeah, but can we use this here? Yeah, it's in this totally different ecosystems, totally different consumers. That's something that probably is totally alien to our consumers, so we can't use this here. And coming back to live shopping and live streaming, that's a pretty good case where you can show exactly this problem. Yeah, e-commerce in China has a totally different role. Yeah, it basically works is like it fulfills the same use case as Netflix does. Yeah, if you come at home in the evening as a Chinese consumers, you go into an e-commerce app and get entertained there. Here you go to Netflix and watch your movie or your TV show there. Yeah, and that's something that's totally great for somebody who's running an e-commerce shop. Yeah, getting people to come to your store to every evening to get entertained. Yeah, that's something that everybody here wants to have too. And that's why 2 years ago, companies like Nivea, everybody was hopping on live shopping, but it never really worked. Yeah, Instagram, the whole Meta operation tried to put a lot of focus on their live shopping products. And they actually pulled it last autumn, yeah, because nobody really was able to use this and make it work. Why? I think because we underestimate the role of dialogue in these services. Yeah, in China, most of the stuff is always connected to having a dialogue about the stuff that you are seeing. Yeah, and there's, as you probably all know, there's not hardly any e-commerce shop in China that doesn't have a chat button where you get instant feedback if you have a question. Here, you're happy if you get a 24-hour later response if you write an email to a shop owner. Yeah. And why are the Chinese brands talking so much about or to their customers? Because they use this dialogue to build relationship, and they use these relationships to build trust. Yeah. Because everybody who knows a little bit about how the Chinese society works, they know that building trust is something is always a prerequisite to do business. And the interesting thing here is, could this work also with Western consumers? And I think it would, but we haven't tried it so far. And an interesting anecdote that I came across a couple of months ago is something that we see here on the screen. That's a guy who's been selling, who's actually doing live shopping in Western TV, yeah, on QVC. He's selling trousers on QVC for like 20 years. And he told me an interesting story. For the last 20 years, every consumer, everybody who's watching this show could call in and could talk to the guy who's trying to sell you trousers, yeah, but nobody did. And everybody thought that Western consumers don't want to have a conversation with somebody who's on TV because they don't have any questions. Either they like the trouser or they don't, either they buy it or they don't, but they don't want to talk about it, yeah, which is probably different than from Chinese consumers who always would like to talk about the stuff that they're seeing there. And then they did a little test. They started to make it possible to ask questions via WhatsApp. And he said that totally changed everything, because suddenly people started to ask questions. And the whole thing became a very lively, interactive operation. And what they realized was that Western consumers don't want to have their voice heard on live TV. That's why they never called. But they are very happy to have a conversation about the stuff that they're seeing. Yeah, this whole thing, dialogue building, relationship building, trust, that's something that also would work for them. Yeah, and that's something that he realized at this point. If we look at successful YouTube people, yeah, people like in Germany, Rezo, for example, they also do exactly the same thing what Chinese KOLs are doing. Yeah, they are not only sending out their videos, but they're also trying to build a community around it, build relationships and build trust. So it's not totally alien. We have to do this the right way, then we can actually use the same ways to do business. So what we do with feedback that we get from the system that Elaine will show you, we should learn, yeah, instead of just copy. We try to understand what's working and why, and then we try to find ways to use this. And by the way, we probably have to get familiar with trends coming from Asia anyhow. Like, for example, who knows what this is?
Squid Games?
Yeah, it's Squid Games. Not sure who saw this. It's was the biggest show on Netflix last year. And it's not from China, it's from South Korea. But it's a very interesting example for how Asian soft power is on the rise. Yeah, we suddenly get media content not only from the US or from Britain, but also from Asian countries. And that's something probably that we will see more and more over the coming years. And we get more and more familiar with getting influence not only from the US, but also from the Asian side. Another interesting case is this. This is the latest Gucci collection from last year. The biggest market for Gucci nowadays is China. And they start to come up with their own collection for Chinese consumers. And we probably will see over the coming years that this kind of designs, the stuff that's happening in China will probably also somehow become influential here in the West. Yeah, we suddenly see design elements that are successful in China or in Asia becoming also successful in Europe or the US. So that's the reason why it makes sense to listen and learn what people think about our products within a system that's totally alien to us, to then try to adapt this feedback or use this feedback for us. And that's basically the idea of this instant digital diversity that we are talking about. Yeah? Building digital channels to get diverse feedback for our products, even if we don't want to sell them to China, but that we use them here in the West. So that's what I wanted to talk about. And now Elaine will show you a little bit about the platform that Contact have built and the ideas and thinking behind it.
Okay, thank you, Björn. Yeah, so my section will be a little change of pace. Like I want it to be a more conversational, and I'll first show you the platform and introduce ourselves first, and then inspired from Björn's talk, we'll go into the various like WeChat, live streaming, and I want to know like what you guys think, like why it's happening in China, and could it be relevant to the West as well. So our business is called Contact. It's a SaaS platform that allows Western brands to test drive your products with Asia users. Okay, the Asia users could be anywhere, but a lot of them are in Asia. And I'm a co-founder. I have my colleagues, Nancy and Sonia. Basically, I originally have a business in Hong Kong called Kaiser. And then with the pandemic, I actually came to North America and we spun off this business. So it's a sister company. The few of you who know me, like Star Global, Tobias. So I still have the Kaiser business, but this is actually a web platform that hopefully makes our life better, easier. So with Asia market, we're talking about countries like China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, India, South Korea, Japan, and Thailand. So just a little bit about myself. So I consider myself my brain is half. I grew up in Hong Kong. I grew up bilingual. I speak Chinese. I speak English. So that's why we're in this business, because we help many Western companies in China for the past 20 years. And we often come across a lot of cultural differences, sometimes clashes. Sometimes we have to see how we can mitigate it along the way. This is actually a real building, by the way, in China. It's for movie sets. So it's like half east, half west. Okay. So for the platform, this is, let me show you a video of it first. Yep. So the reason why we came, so the reason why we came up with this idea of this platform is because, like, with our many years of helping Western companies in Asia, especially in the China market, we find that the product development cycle is way too slow. Okay, way too slow. Like Asia market, especially China, develops very fast. A product can be out in the market in 1 month. But oftentimes when we work with Western companies, especially US, European, the product cycles are 3 months research, or maybe 3 months just talking about the proposal, and then recruiting users, like another 2 months. And then by the time the product is out, for example, some medical devices, we've worked with some clients in those areas. It takes 7 years for the product to be out in the market. And then by that time, China has built several billion-dollar companies like Xiaomi already, right? So I think the world is getting faster, shorter. So our old way of working actually might not make sense anymore. Plus nowadays with the internet and remote research, I think we can work much faster and more collaboratively globally, right? So this is the platform. We're still in alpha phase, so we're still building it. It's not really launched yet, but this is the reason why we want to have a conversation with potential people who are interested, and we can work with our partners to refine this according to their needs as well. So, okay, let me just show you quickly what the platform is like. So this is our site, contact. And previously, I've worked with a lot of Western companies, Kaiser, the business in Hong Kong. That's why we know there's this need. But this platform is not just for China, it's for Asia. So if you draw a circle around this area, did you know 50% of the world's population is inside the circle? Like out of this world, like 50% is in this corner of the world, right? But they're mostly non-English speaking. And what I found is that a lot of companies, usually because of the language and cultural barrier, they'll be like, can you help me find some English speaking users in China? Which is not very representative, right? Or English speaking users in Japan or South Korea, right? So we think this is not the right way to do research because you don't really get to know the real perspectives of Asian users. Okay, so if you go into this platform, the idea is that you can search by countries, cities, gender, age range, occupation, and the platform will be populated. Right now, we have a few thousand users that we have, worked with in the past. So we have verified and vetted them. But in the future, as we have more people sign up, and also if our Western clients wants more specific types of users, we can. So one way is on the platform, you can look for users in different countries, specify their age group, their occupation, the type of products that they might be using, and then share us the project details. Maybe you want to talk to, let's say, 20 people, and for 60 minutes, you need a live translator because you can't speak Chinese or other Asian languages. The idea of this platform will be a community of users, translators, researchers, and then you can have project start dates, end dates, and it will give you the quotation. For now, our team will be surfacing you, but in the future, this platform could be a self-servicing platform. Okay, and all right, let me show you here. Okay, so here's some forecasts with the pandemic recovering. A lot of the emerging markets are probably recovering a little bit better, especially in Asia. I think China and India are two of the largest population in the world, right? Just in China, it's 4.5 times the population of the US. So this platform will give you instant access to Asia users without having to do our traditional kind of proposal, recruitment, and access, people in this area. So it's 2.3 billion people in population in this area, and it's non-English speaking mostly. Yeah, but we will have translators. We will have local researchers to help. So these are the brands that we've worked in the past. We've also worked with quite a few German brands as well, like Siemens, BMW, Carl Zeiss. So we've done this for many years, for 20 years, but in a consulting format. Yeah, so now we want to see how we can use technology to scale this, to build a platform so that it will be quicker, so that you can find users maybe within 2 days instead of three weeks or 4 weeks. And then you can constantly test your ideas, test your new concepts, whether it's to go to Asia or to inspire your business models for the West, right? So we've been to many homes, like just in the China market. We've been to many cities. We've been to many we've seen many users, many homes, different research methodologies. We've followed people like a shadowing. We've been to their retail stores, homes, like looking at what they use in their apps, doing buddy groups. It's like a form of focus group, but we've adapted it to the Chinese way because people are uncomfortable with strangers. We've did user testing, test product concepts like and get feedback. So this was before the pandemic, but now with people not wanting to meet strangers so much, the remote research might be a better way to get feedback, right? Also, this is interesting. This we've done maybe more than 10 years ago for a company in Hong Kong that manufactures plastic. And in 2008, because of the financial crisis, they can no longer export to Western markets. So he wanted to shift his business model to China, but in China, people don't drink coffee so much. So with a small budget, what we did was we just sent people to take photos around homes and see what they drink. And then we collected all these photos back and you see what people drink, right? People drink like goji berries, red dates, chrysanthemum tea. And then inspired by that, you can adapt your product, right? Like maybe study how people drink tea or drink these, like what are their requirements? It might influence how you design the drink vessel, which is the plastic is what they are trying to make, right? So you can also do this too, sitting in Europe. We can send people to take photos everywhere in China, and you can instantly get inspiration, right, from that. Okay, so oops, yeah. So the problems that we've identified in the past 20 years is the speed of development in Asia is very fast. Product development cycles that takes 1 or 2 years is no longer workable, right? Because by the time you develop the product, the market has changed already. Language and cultural barriers, but our platform aims to solve that. We'll provide a community of translators and local researchers. And the trust fabric is very different. What we found is, I don't know how many of you have tried to recruit Asia users. Anyone? Yeah. So in Western platforms, recruitment platforms is pretty simple, right? Like people sign up, you have your credit card and you just pay. But I think in Asia, it works a little differently. People's trust is based on family and friends more than platforms. I think people are very weary of platforms that might have a lot of fake postings. We have encountered recruiting Chinese users where during the time when it was face-to-face, they brought their brother or parents along with the research because they're not sure if we're real. Like they're very afraid that they're scammed. So I think the relationship and trust is very important for people to want to be involved. Yeah. Oh, and here are 3 slides to inspire you. So in a Western setting, like, maybe people are a little bit more individualists and they don't necessarily live with their parents so much. And I'm sure you're familiar with these products, right? You have these at home, yeah? But I can tell you, if I show this to some Asian users, they won't know some of these products. Like Chinese users tell me, what is that? Like the salad spinner, they don't get it. They're like, we don't eat so much salad that are raw. Yeah. And then the mixer, people sometimes don't even have ovens in their homes, right? They have maybe dishwashers, but ovens are less popular. Now, if you shift to a Chinese home, you often see even when we come up with personas for what we do, I believe a persona in China should not be one person. It should be a whole family. Because the finance is shared between parents and kids and grandchildren. So it's very hard to even nail down what's your household income, because it's not an individual thing. The household income might be, oh, my grandparents gave me like 2 apartments, before I was 18 years old. then it's very hard to know how much they actually make. Okay, let me ask you something. Do you guys know what these 3 products are? Anyone want to type in the chat or speak up? Any idea? Yana?
Yeah, we identified the rice cooker and the teapot and some infusion
Okay.
thing on the top left.
This is not a rice cooker. This is a hot water boiler. Yeah, the one, okay, and this is the reason why. Because our lifestyles are different. This is a soybean milk maker. This is for Chinese medicine and sometimes for Chinese soups. This product is for hot water for cup noodles, right? It's very interesting because when I go to Western countries and you go to hotels, there's never a hot water bottle, a hot water heater. But if you go to Asia, it's always there. Yeah, in Western hotels, you get like an ice bucket, right? So I'm always fascinated by how our lifestyle, affects product development or products and services. Okay. And another interesting exercise I want you to try out is this book is called The Geography of Thought, How Asians and Westerners Think Differently and Why. It's a fascinating book. They've run experiments, and one of the experiments is this. Okay, so I'd like you to try the experiment. So if I give you a chicken, cow, and grass, if you can only pick 2, like what would you pair it up with? Would you pick chicken and cow, chicken and grass, or cow and grass? For those people who pick chicken and cow, can you press 1 on the chat? For those who think it's cow and grass, can you press 2 on the chat? Two, interesting. Anyone else? Why did you pick 2? Oh, some people are 1. Interesting. Can you explain why? Martin, why did you pick 1?
I can eat both.
You can eat both. Okay. All right. How about the people who pick 2?
Oh, the horse will eat the grass.
Okay.
The cow,
Yeah.
the cow
It's
will
a
eat the
cow.
grass.
Horse. Yes. Interesting. Okay. Actually, in the book, it says in the West, there are more people who would pick cow and chicken because they're animals and plants. For Asia, a lot of people would pick cows and grass because it's relational. The cows eats the grass. So it's interesting that in this group, there are more people thinking relational than categorical. Maybe that's why you're interested in China. Okay, but it's a fun exercise to do it with your friends and see what they pick. Okay, so after like my first 1 or 2 projects in China, like 20 years ago, because we've encountered a lot of cultural differences and clashes, I came up with this chart because I believe a lot of our approaches to how we research a market and how we develop products kind of comes down to how people think differently. So in China, like people, it's a collectivist society. Like everything is like you go to karaoke like with 15 of your friends, and even the restaurants you have like 12 people on a table, right? And especially in stark contrast with the US, like China is not all men are equal. There is hierarchy. Whereas in the US, it's more like people respect individualism, respect differences, and China's not really like that. And people tend to conform more. They tend to listen to their parents or listen to elderly people or their boss. Where I think in the West, especially in the US, which I'm more familiar with than in Europe, is that people tend to debate a lot, and it doesn't matter if you're different culture or different race or different gender, right? And the communication method is more direct in US. I think Europe is maybe somewhere in between, but Chinese people sometimes go around in circles, and you need to be have dinner before you talk about business, because you need to be friends and have a relationship before you talk about money. Okay. And Chinese is all about the family. And I'm always shocked that my Western friends would move to Asia when they're in their 50s, right? Like Chinese people would never do that. Like they always need to stick with their family. And it's more about harmony and balance instead of truth, right? So now coming back to what Björn has talked about, some of these phenomena, like in China, like WeChat, Alipay, super apps. You know, have you guys seen these products? Like this is Alipay, and it's like you can access all types of services. Like you can do shopping, you can you can get to your doctor, you can buy your insurance, you can like chat with people, you can do everything. Like you do gaming, you can do investments, everything in one app, right? And even I think recently, even companies like, I think Elon Musk had mentioned that just copy WeChat on one of the videos he mentioned. So my question to you, why do you think this is happening? Why do you think this is possible in China? I'd like to have a conversation with you guys. Anyone? Like why is this not happening? Like for example, in China, if you let me share, like if in the West, like especially in US, if you want to go to a restaurant, you go to Yelp and you look for a restaurant. And then if you want to take a cab to the restaurant, you open up another app, which is Uber, right? So it's a separate app. In China, you can go to 大众点评, which is an app for restaurants, and right there, you can call a taxi and pay, and you can look at the map as well. So it seems like in China, everything is kind of merged together, where in the West, everything is kind of separate. Any thoughts about why this is happening? Nope. Okay, I'll tell you my version. I think
Martin wrote something in the chat.
Oh, okay, you did. Ecosystem thinking, to be able to process high complex interface and contextualization. Okay. I personally think it has to do with China policy, because China policy allows WeChat and Alipay to dominate. Okay. And also in terms of because in the West you have, especially in the US, even telecom companies, you have several, right? You know, AT&T, Verizon, like you can't just say there's only one utility company or one mobile telecommunication company. So it's kind of possible in China because they can be top down, and also because of the population size is so big, that the speed of change is very fast, because you have to compete with 1.4 billion people, right? So in any product category, there are so many brands competing at the same time. So it forces things to be very, very fast. And also consumers are also less critical because they know things change next month, right? So they don't look for perfection. They look for agility and constant change. I would compare, like, China is like a kid growing up, and US and Europe is maybe more mature markets, so things are more settled in some ways. Okay, and also interestingly, because leadership cultures are very different, like in China's top-down hierarchical. Europeans are more like egalitarian and consensual, I believe. US is a bit more here. Actually in Europe, there's also like a span, right? Yeah. So that's why in China, you can see, although it's big, but it could be fast because of top down. And people don't debate as much, right? So this actually influences how products come about. Yeah, so one question for you is, how could this inspire products for Western markets? Yeah. All right, the other one is TikTok. In China, it's called Douyin. It's live streaming that Björn talked about. So in China, like the live stream looks like this. It's very chaotic, I would say, like in Western eyes, I think, because the audience will be typing, you know, and they're interacting with the KOL, the influencer, and you see they're actually selling Emporio Armani and Estee Lauder here, right? But the reason why users would buy is because they trust that person, even more than the brand. Yeah. So I think, you know, the live stream works in China is because of the relationship that the KOLs build with the followers, right? And it's over time, right? It's not immediate. And sometimes they have followings where they have incentives. Like if you help promote more, like you will have bigger incentives as well, like direct selling. And the guanxi thing is huge in China. Like I said, you have to, almost business comes after friendship, not before. And we constantly run into these issues when we help Western brands in China. Like some, especially American brands, they think, oh, you can just pay people money and can get the users. No, sometimes you can't get some users. It's not just the money, it's the relationship that we've built over time. That's why our content platform, the way we recruit users is very different. We recruit it through friends of friends, and they can only come to this platform if they are vetted by their friends, not just anyone. Because if we do anyone, you get a lot of fake users. Yeah. So if they referred a friend to come in and the friend kind of did not show up, or they lied, or they scam people, then it will affect the friends. Like we'll design an incentive system that will kind of pull down their grade. It's like a gamification thing, right? Yeah. So that's how we're approaching it. Yeah. And this is a chart about the different countries and the individualism versus the collectivism. So you see China, South Korea, Japan is all up there, and India even, right? Divika is here, she's from India. And we've constantly encountered issues when we recruit people in Asian markets because of this difference. One thing is, in the West, it's very popular to do focus groups, right? Do you guys do that? Focus groups? Yeah. In China, we found it doesn't really work that well. Because if you put a group of strangers together, like 12 people in a room, or even in a Zoom chat, they would not say anything. Because they would be thinking, who else is in the group? Is it gonna be my boss's friend? Am I gonna say something that will get me fired? So the Western focus group format, I don't think it works. So we've created another format. It's called buddy groups. So we have a group of 3 people, and they will bring their close friends or close family or close colleagues. And then the dynamic shifts because they'll be very chatty. Yeah, because there's trust within that group. Okay. And also sometimes our Western clients tells us to, oh, can we do intercept interviews on the street? And I'm like, what? If you do intercept interviews on the street in China, the police might come and arrest you. Especially if they see some foreigners like huddling around some strangers on the street. So no, we cannot do that. And sometimes we have to kind of negotiate with a client and say, hey, some of these methods doesn't really work in China. And we've adapted it. Like we've adapted to the intercept interviews to be inside a school area, like it's for finding mobile users, then that's okay. That's a little bit better, but just intercepting strangers, people will be like, whoa, who are you? Are you trying to scam me? Yeah. Okay. And then, so I just keep putting this question, how does this inspire like products for Western markets, right? How are we researching differently, designing differently? Okay. And also Hema for O2O, OMO. This is the Hema supermarket in China. whereas online to offline, and it's all integrated. It's not a separate company like Amazon Go. And this is how Chinese people think. It's all related. It's collectivism, right? It's all, everybody is a competitor and a collaborator at the same time. I think this might look very complicated for you, but I think it's because of the holistic and systems thinking that Martin is talking about, right? Martin, do you have anything to share about the holistic ecosystems thinking that you mentioned in the chat?
No, but it's just the perception. You have exactly the slide you just showed, shows it that you said it quite clearly. Everybody is competitor and collaborator in the same time, and that is what is so exciting on this ecosystems in China, where we are still far away from. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about why Chinese think this way? What's the explanation behind that? Why is it so different? I'll give you my explanation, but I just want to see what you guys think. Any thoughts? Okay, if not, I'll show why I think that's the case. So I think in the West, maybe because of the religion, there's always this concept of good and evil, good and bad, right? Like it's the God and the devil, right? Kind of thinking. China is like, there's good inside bad, there's bad inside good. It's never black and white. It's more like gray. Like, yeah. So you see this in theater, like you see this in the cinema, in the movies. Sometimes in Chinese or Asian movies, it's not always the good guy versus the bad guy. It's not like Superman, Batman versus the Joker person. It's like very, it's less distinctive, right? And also the Chinese language is modular, okay? It's actually Lego. Chinese characters are Lego. It's a system of modular parts that you put together. And also in Chinese medicine, you never see, there's no specialization in Chinese medicine. In Western medicine, you have like cardiologists, you have brain surgeons, you have chiropractor, you have like dermatologists. It sees the body as different parts, right? In China, it's a whole system of qi, like energy, and of the meridian points. So Chinese doctors is one person. In ancient times, Chinese doctors also are good astrologists. They are herbalists. Like it's a whole system. That's why Chinese people like massages. They go to get the foot massage because foot massage is like remote VPN. You massage the foot and it'll affect different parts of your body. It's not just the feet. Okay. Like you massage a part of the feet, it will maybe take care of your headache or your stomach or your spleen, right? So it's not about body parts. Yeah, so I think this stems from a very different worldview. Yeah, so this is a very different thinking in terms of Chinese and Western medicine. I think to illustrate that. It's not what Chinese medicine is not standardized. It's more about herbs. It's more about preventative. Yeah, so I think inspiring from this way of thinking and holistic system, maybe it can also inspire some Western companies on their products. Yeah. Okay, so we mentioned about this platform, and so currently we can help Western companies recruit Asia users, particularly China first. We can recruit like 12, 20 users. You can test your concept. We can find translators for you. We can find researchers or moderators for you. And then in the long term, we'll have more data to provide more big data analysis, possibly. And here's just to give you an idea of the pricing plan is it can be pay as you go per user, or if you have a lot of concept to test like throughout the months or years, it could be like for 50 users, it'll be cheaper. And if you need something more customized, then you can contact us. So actually this price already includes the user intensive and our typical turnaround time for average users like white collar students, homemaker, mobile users will be a 2 days turnaround time. So you don't have to prepare proposals for months and recruit users for weeks to get to these users, okay? And last thing is I wanted to show you, we used to organize these trips before the pandemic for our Western clients in China. This is called the Experience Digital China trip. We have different versions. We have 1 day versus 4 to 5 days. So we brought many companies over, like HSBC, banks, like sometimes lawyers are interested too for some reason. And then it's actually to experience how things are different. So they'll experience everything from WeChat wallet to sending red packets to each other. We'll go to visit some stores like DJI, Hema, like the Alibaba futuristic supermarket. They'll order a taxi with a Didi, or show off their legs on a ride with a Mobike, and visit Xiaomi. And this is like a battery, mobile battery dispenser, right? And here's a video on it. Okay, so I've also written a book in the last 2 years about how China market is very different and how things have to move much quicker with product development if you're targeting like China users or Asia users. So if you're interested, you can scan this QR code to Amazon website and get a Kindle version. If you're willing to wait with the current mailing system, we can send you a real book. There's a hard copy or a soft copy as well. You can send us in email. My colleagues will help you. Maybe Nancy and Sonia can share our web link on the order. Yeah, if you're interested. And yep, that's, oops. Okay, so here's the Amazon Kindle version if you don't want to wait for physical delivery. And the last thing, yep, and this is my contact and our website. Okay, so I want to have a conversation, like open the floor with Björn and all of you about what are your thoughts, like how like does the explanation about why things work in China inspire you, or how do you think it can work in the West? Yeah.
And what do you think about the basic idea of a platform like this to inspire Western product development?
Anyone? Martin?
Yeah, basically, I think that is a kind of pretty good way to break out tired thinking practices in product innovation, product development, or whatever. So the other way around, is a very interesting one, which I see, especially with our focus on digital products and services. Yeah. Since we're not dealing with physical products.
Mm-hmm. So, like would it be interesting for you to access Asia users to give feedback, so that, because sometimes when we show Western products to Chinese users, the mindset is very different. Like, you know, even websites, Western websites are very clean. and very sparse, right? Chinese websites are very like dense with words and a lot of information, right? So when we show the Western websites or mobile apps to Chinese users, they're like, "What? Why is it so like sparse? Like, is it finished yet?" So it's really interesting to see the different responses, right? Yeah.
I can imagine that. Yeah.
I think it's super helpful, and I experienced it when I was involved in a Volkswagen project when my had a new brand design, wanted to roll out it also to China. And it was, as you said, it was very clean, very reduced, very premium. And the Chinese people or the colleagues or the people from Volkswagen in China we were talking to, I said that will never work because, as you said, it's too much white space and all that thing. And I think that is so important because here in Europe, we are really biased. Most of the people know nothing about China, just what's in the news, and they have a completely different image about the whole country. And if you never haven't been there, you just don't understand it. But I see also in the other direction exactly the same thing. If Chinese companies approach us because they want to enter the European market and we come along with how we think, how we should do it, mostly it stops in that moment because they have other strategies that may work very well in China, but in Europe, that is exactly the same in both directions. And that is really hard to get this understanding if you haven't experienced it before.
Yeah, absolutely. We were helping a Singapore company. They do massage chairs and they were expanding to the US. And I was trying to explain to them that in the West, in the US, people would not want to buy a massage chair that costs as much as a car because people don't want massage that hurts, you know? So it's very interesting, you know, the differences, right? But in China or Asia, many homes have a huge massage chair. And that's a gift to give to your parents or grandparents, and people love it, actually. They love it when it hurts, the massage. So it's not Swedish massage. It has to be shiatsu. It has to, you know, go deep in the tissue and stuff like that. Yeah.
I found very interesting the insights you told us about how you recruit the people for doing this research and this buddy group thing. All the things that are common here, like focus groups or street interviews, that doesn't work at all in China. I wasn't aware about that. That's really interesting also to recruit them over the recommend friends network. It's also quite different, like it is here. Yeah.
I have a friend who is also in our industry. She's in Japan, and she told me one time she went to China, and she was working with a professor in China, and she was just recording on the streets, and she got arrested for 1 day. Okay, so there are certain things that doesn't really work, that people need to be careful about, you know.
I have another question, because before COVID, I've been several times in China. And I have still some European and Chinese friends there, but the European friends, they told me with COVID, the whole situation in China has changed. And a lot of expats have left the country, and a lot of development that we have seen, especially in big cities, when it comes to bars, to restaurants, to how the people encounter together, has changed completely. So it gets back more in Chinese roots. And does that have an influence on your research and also how you approach the whole thing? Because the people were locked down a long time, sometimes for months, in their houses. Did you see any effects on your work?
You know, interestingly, this platform, originally we're thinking it's just users initially in China. Of course, the platform is targeted to Asia because we have other partners as well. But one thing we also notice is there is also a lot of Chinese that are overseas. Okay, and then they are all connected by WeChat. Like Nancy and Sonia, although they're physically here in Canada, they have groups and groups of WeChat groups, like hundreds of people, right? And we also believe that sometimes it's the more affluent Chinese that are overseas, but they will influence all their family and friends by showing off like what they bought in the West, you know, and then the family friends will ask them to help them buy like a whole list of things, right? And bring it back, you know. So I believe the world is no longer geographically as separated as we think it is. I mean, we're in this conversation, we're all over, like we have people from all over, right? Yeah. So I think we're much more connected now with technology, that our thesis is, if you can inspire or get maybe overseas Chinese to be interested in your product, it will spread like wildfire to their friends and family inside China also, right? So maybe you don't even need to set up a business initially inside China. You can already test out your concept remotely with, you know, Chinese, and go from there, right? And see how it works, or how to refine your direction. Yeah. Just in Vancouver, there's more Chinese people here than you know, the locals, I think now. Nancy and Sonia came over, and I think they discovered they don't need to speak English. Yeah. So that's our other positioning. Oh, and also, I don't know if you've noticed, there are some services now, although they are not in China, it's targeted to Chinese. Like this one. It's like a Food Panda or a Deliveroo. It's called Fan Tuan. It's targeted to overseas Chinese or Asian people. Okay. And also Sonia mentioned Hongmall. Hongmall is not in China. The service is to allow people to access products in China, right? So the service is not in China, but it's targeted to Chinese overseas. Yeah.
Yeah, and also Shein.
And also Shein, right?
Like go to Taobao.
That's clear.
Yeah, so these are really interesting phenomena happening now, I think. And this would be competing with Amazon, right? But it's targeting overseas Chinese. Okay. Any more thoughts and questions? Anyone? Actually, with the China digital trip that I showed you, I was also talking to Björn. Maybe we can do a virtual version as well if you don't want to travel, because we have a lot of network in China. We can have people run around with cameras, and then you can see it sitting in the comfort of your home in Europe. Yeah, so you can consider us like your extension to reach either users or peek into Asia. Yeah, for you. Because we have done business there for 20 years, so we have a lot of network, as well as different parts of Asia. So previously, Davika, one of my partners for Kaiser, also came. She is in India, so for India we can also do that. Although India uses some of them can speak English, but there's also a lot of local languages as well, and very different cultures and religions, right? And so I think China and India will be two of the biggest markets that Western companies can look into, right? And maybe some of the more trending ones might be South Korea and Japan, because they sometimes, like Blackpink and BTS had stormed the world, like South Korean, these boy and girl bands, right? They're influencing a lot of trends as well. So we can also tap into South Korea and Japan markets. Okay, so if you're interested, get in touch. Here's my email.
Yeah, I think we have another participant that she want to share something.
Oh, sure, please.
Zoe?
Oh, hello, here's Zoe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, because of the bad internet, I cannot use the video, but happy that you can hear me. That I have another question because I'm also a overseas Chinese who are working now currently in Berlin by MHP. It's a how to say, it's a consulting company. So our products or projects are mostly B2B. So in this circumstance, how we can, for example, reach the user or interviewee who are basically in this industry or has the requirements just as our products keen to do. So this is most important for us, or let's say for B2B product. So what
B2B product, what industry are you in?
it's like automobile.
Automotive. Okay.
Yeah, like BMW or Porsche. So
Okay.
our product, or let's say SAS product, it's mostly for expert. It's not for normal user. So
Yes.
under this instance, we are very desire to find some users who are interested in such software services too, but not like normal users. So if in this case, your platform can also provide such users with such expert background, or it's like a very allgemein, how to say, very normal user. Yeah.
Okay, so for our platform is mainly for more B2B, B2C users, because that's much more easier to find. For B2B, it will be a consulting service. Yeah, and we will work with recruiters. And usually for B2B, we usually work with the client's sales team, or because they have their sales team will be working with their B2B clients, right? And that's where the connection is, and we can work with them to find the right people. Yeah. So I would say B2B is a different story, because it's not like you can just randomly find people, right? You need to be in that industry, domain knowledge, and the right type of users or even decision makers sometimes. So for that, it will be a consulting project instead of a platform. So I would say that.
Okay, thanks for sharing. And it will be very grateful that if the service can be separated into two parts, like B2B services and B2C services, then we'll be better. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. Thank you. All right. Any other thoughts? Or anything that we would like to see? Like what kind of help do you need in Asia? Because now I think flying is a lot more expensive than before, right? So you can leverage our network to help you access things that you can't before, maybe.
I think from my side, the brain is working now. It triggered the mind, and it needs some time to figure out, okay, maybe the obvious things and then the not so obvious things what we could do. So I'm fine for now. Thank you very much for this inject today in the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So any questions, please reach out to Björn or me or my team, Nancy and Sonia, and we'll be happy to help you. Okay.
Thanks so much. Great insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you much. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Let me stop this recording.